Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of IP&O from home. We are, of course, as always, live from the couch in my room. We got no guests this week, just the original three, and we are here to talk about the new procedure, I guess would be the right word, for when you want to come back to campus. So we actually all did this for the first time last week. So it's called My Campus Pass, and it's in your My Rutgers dashboard. So if you want to go back to any building or just I think on campus in general, you have to submit this form that basically says it's basically a questionnaire of if about like your symptoms for COVID, if you've been in contact with people, and then if you're all clear, it'll give you kind of like a thumbs up and a green light to go ahead and look at it. So I think John has it up on his screen and might be able to say a little more about it.
Yeah, let's take a look. But essentially, it's pretty thorough. They want to know when you're coming. Will you be going inside? You see, there's questions there. If you're going inside, it'll ask what buildings you're going. So last week when I did this, we were at Knightsbridge to collect our gear and went over to the public safety building to take some photos. And so it allows you to put in all the buildings that you'll be in. And then you get, pretty standard questionnaire about any of these symptoms and contact you may have had with somebody who has potentially tested positive. So I think it's a really simple and effective way to keep track of who is going into buildings and, what situation they're in prior to going in. But also I think it'll help eventually, in the off chance that somebody shows up to the same building that you were in maybe around the same time and later finds out that they might be positive. So I think it's both a means of keeping tabs on who's coming in and, what they're doing, but also having a good log for potential tracing in the event that that's necessary. So I think it's a pretty good system.
And then
Now, John, and this isn't suggested, right? This is mandatory.
As far as I know, it's mandatory. I'm not going to fill it out just because obviously I'm not going to be on campus today. But at the end of the questionnaire, you get what's called a campus pass, and I believe that the process is that if you are asked, you must provide proof that you have completed your campus pass. That's part of the new signage that we rolled out last week. And, I think we finalized that signage early in the week, maybe the end of the week before, and it was already up alongside all of the other external building signage, which is pretty impressive. I know that the teams putting all that stuff into place have been working really hard to ensure that goes up quickly and in the right place. And I think, we can attest to it, having been on campus twice in the last 2 weeks, that everywhere you look, there is very, very clear instructions, whether it's on the outside of a building or, on the elevator doors or on specific stairwells that you can only use to go up or down. And now alongside all of those, and in particular the signage that's outside, you have this stop to check to make sure that you've received your campus pass by coming in and filling out this questionnaire.
So for me, I've kind of been on and off campus. I don't want to say since like the beginning, but more or less I've kind of been on campus here and there. But for you guys, I think it was like 2 weeks ago when we first went. Yeah. That was your guys' first time back on campus since, what was it, March 13th, March 14th? So yep. Coming from your perspective, from people who haven't been there in a while, what did you feel about everything?
I felt fine. I felt like, I was more comfortable than I thought I was going to be honest with you. Number one, I was impressed with, like what John said, the signage is literally everywhere. Like I don't think you could, I didn't see a single building where it wasn't posted sort of like, you know, you have to wear a mask, wash your hands, and keep your distance. And in any elevators that we went to, I'm talking about outside the buildings, but also inside the buildings, like the reminders are there. So I think the people who did the installation for those things did a great job. It's very prominent. These aren't like little tiny placards. These are large signs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I felt comfortable. I felt like everybody was doing what they were supposed to be doing. So it didn't really bother me to be on campus for the first time in a while. I was more comfortable than I thought I was going to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think had you asked me this question maybe mid-April, early May, I might have said, you know, I'm not sure what to expect. You know, I'm happy to do it, but I'm going to take precautions that I think are necessary. Because at this point, there hadn't really been much of that stuff put in place, right? But heading in last week or 2 weeks ago, having also been pretty involved in the making of all the signage and knowing that it was being pretty widely rolled out, I felt a lot more comfortable going into it. And, you know, obviously I wasn't sure what to expect, but, you know, where we went, there were only the people we knew we were going to be interacting with, more or less, in the building, you know, bar a couple people here and there. But everybody that I saw, everybody that we interacted with, you know, everybody had their mask, everybody was keeping their distance when they needed to be. You know, we were all using the hand sanitizer dispensers, and I saw plenty of other people doing that too. So it not only are the reminders there, but it seems like people really get it, and they're acting on those reminders to make sure that, you know, they're not just keeping themselves safe, but they're keeping everybody else that could be in those buildings safe as well.
I think that's why one of the reasons the date for the work from home period getting extended to January, or I think it's January now, was a good idea, strictly for that kind of stuff, strictly for
Right.
like all of this signage being able to be put in the right place and having enough of it. Because let's say, I don't know, it was still September. I think there would be some sort of big rush to get all this stuff out, and then it wouldn't be in the right places, or there wouldn't be enough of it, and there would just be so many more like logistical things wrong with it.
Right.
And now, like, they had time to develop this campus pass, which I think is a
Right.
good idea for tracing.
So while we were there, I snapped an image. I was with my camera phone, so I can show people sort of what that looks like. Are you guys seeing that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and every one of the buildings that we went to, like these types of signs were prominently displayed outside and inside.
And I mean, even that's a really good example, right? It's not just one side of the door; it's on both sides of the door. And, you know, Knightsbridge, we have the front door and the back door, if you will, and it's on both sides of those doors. So it's not like they left no chance. Like, you are going to see this signage if you're walking into a building, no matter what. And then once you're in the building, you're seeing more signage, and you're getting more reminders, and you're following, you know, specific paths. You know, there's the one stairwell right in the lobby. You can only use that stairwell to go up, and then the two other side wells you use to go down, and they're very clearly marked, and it helps really control the flow of traffic, right? But Paul, back to what you were saying about extending into January. Not only did it give them the opportunity to get this signage posted, to get the campus pass developed, but it also provides the whole community a chance to do sort of like what we did. You know, we've now been in twice in 2 weeks, and while we might not have anything on our schedule immediately coming up where we're going to be back, we sort of know now what to expect when we're back. And what this does is it allows, you know, sort of small groups of people, you know, a handful here and there, to get back on campus, to get into the office, and while there's not a ton of people there, really get a sense of what it will be like or might be like when we're back, knowing, you know, what the flow is, and sort of already kind of reshaping their work routines, if you will. You know, like I know a lot of people that come in and only take the stairs. They don't want to take the elevator. But now maybe that route looks a little different for them. And this gives them the time to figure that out with all of the great signage and everything without having to deal with potentially running into too many people and doing the wrong thing before they recognize what is the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as running into other people, it felt like, as far as like population, it felt like we were sort of in between semesters. You know, you have like that
Right.
small contingent of students that are still on campus, but it felt like that. The buses seem to be pretty empty for the most part, at least at this point. But again, the scooters are there. I saw a lot of people on the scooters. So I think those are, you know, sort of filling the gap as far as
Right.
like, you know, like inter-campus transportation. I feel like people are taking advantage of that. I don't know how much campus to campus transportation isn't required right now. I don't know how many students are going between campuses. But yeah, it kind of had that like, you know, early spring kind of, you know, no one's back yet kind of feel.
And I'm not sure exactly how they're going to do it, but I'm going to imagine it's not going to be like January 1st. Okay, everyone's back in now. It's going to be staggered, I would imagine, somewhat. So I think even having it like that is going to just give people the opportunity, like, okay, we're coming in once a week, twice a week, to just kind of get the feel for it. Because at this point now, it's been a while since,
Right.
you know, I would say most people have even been in the office. So like now, as like when we first started this, we were kind of talking about like getting into this routine. Well, now people are in this routine. So now people need to get out of, you know, that routine and
The
get back
time will
into the old
come.
routine.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a whole nother transition period like that too.
Yeah.
And even that picture that Rich showed earlier, going back to it, that's really just like the tip of the iceberg. I feel like we can't even like emphasize enough how much signage there. Like you cannot miss it. There's
Yeah.
stuff everywhere.
Yeah. And I think, sorry, I'm going to jump in real quick. One of the things that we haven't even mentioned yet, right? And I know you've seen a lot of this, having been there more than I have, and being in more public spaces than we've been in. But even the work that you know the facilities group and PD&D have done to put up those plexiglass dividers in spaces, right? It's like where there are instances where people have to be interacting with the public. You know, we've seen it in the PSA for mail services, let's say, right? Those people, you can't stop getting mail during this, and more than anything, it's actually more important now. But they've put both the safety of the customer and the employee first, and acted quickly and got those plexiglass dividers up. And so on top of all of the signage, that, you know, it doesn't stop there. There's even more precautions being taken and measures being put in place to ensure everyone's safety.
Yeah, I feel like if there's like any kind of main access point, bathrooms, entrances, elevators, all of that stuff has been covered with signage.
Okay, guys. Well, I think that wraps us up for this one. So again, just another reminder that if you need to go back onto campus to fill out that My Campus Pass on my Rutgers portal. And yeah, thanks for listening. Check out some of our PSAs if you want to see what the signage looks like. I could post a link in this video in the comments to one that showcases most of the signage, so you could kind of get an idea of what everything looks like. And yeah, thanks for listening.